Hi everyone, welcome to the Edge Powersports. Really excited to get the opportunity to do a walk around on the TE300. This is our 2024 model, amazing machine. It's one of the most popular bikes out there right now. So basically we're going to do it just like I'd give any of our amazing clients their walk around with their new machines. That way, if you ever have any questions, if you pick up one of these nice bikes, you can always refer back to our YouTube videos, get on Facebook, Instagram, and just find that information. That way it's readily available for you. So let's just kind of talk from tip to butt here. We're going to talk about the controls first. All your controls are adjustable. So one thing that I really recommend when you get home, get in your pilot position, get in your standing attack position as well. And you want to take the time to adjust the angle on your levers. A good rule of thumb is while you're in that standing attack position, you want a nice straight line through your forearm, through your fingertips. If your hands are a little flat out like that or even too far underneath, it's going to be more fatiguing, less reaction time, and just not make a very comfortable ride. So if you can make the bike yours, that's the whole goal. So adjust that angle. You're going to find a lot of your hardware on your Husqvarna gas KTM is an 8mm 30 torque combo head. So nice, keeps that hardware pretty consistent around the machine. So if you have to adjust the angle on that, you're just going to loosen some of that hardware. That'll free that up to where you can change that angle. Then distance on the levers is pretty crucial as well. I would recommend really kind of just setting that lever just past that first knuckle right there. So if you do have to adjust that distance depending on your hand size, we've got these nice little black knurl knobs right here. You can adjust those. That'll move that distance in and out for you and really tailor the bike to where it's going to work good for you as well. Clutch lever is set up the same way. Now all the controls are hydraulic operated. We do recommend once a season to flush the fluids out, that everything stays nice and crispy, no moisture gets pulled in the system. It's always going to be dialed for you. You do have a nice sight window up on the front brake reservoir right here. Should look a nice clear honey color. If it starts getting pitch dark, it's definitely time to change that fluid out. So kind of working down to the fuel system here. Fuel-wise, we do recommend premium octane in the fuel. A lot of us run ethanol-free premium 91, so if you can find that, even better. If not, just run premium fuel in it. So gas cap is a locking gas cap. Some people kind of struggle with it. They'll try to turn it first before they unlock it. So really the trick is if it ever gets bound up on that lock button, take the gas cap all the way to the right, then press the lock button. That'll free it up. Then you can just twist that right off. One thing I do recommend to a lot of my clients is if this ever gets a little gummy and kind of sticky, you can take a little WD on a rag and just clean this mating surface off, clean that area up as well, and then you're good to go on that process of it. Gas cap is a self-locking cap, so once you turn it on, it'll self-lock and then you're good to go. And then the amazing part is two-stroke oil goes in there. Now you can fill it all the way to the base of that tube down there. Fill it slow, it can create an air bubble and burp back at you and make a big mess all over the frame. So two-stroke oil goes in there, nice sealable cap, and that chamber actually goes all the way down the frame, and just up underneath the fuel tank there's a secondary chamber. That's actually where that two-stroke oil gets filled up. There is a low oil light on the instrument cluster as well. If that gets a little low on level, that's going to pop up, let you know that you need to get some fuel in there. We're usually seeing roughly about 3.5 to 4 tanks to one usage on the two-stroke oil. So some people top them up every time, some people just keep an eye on it, and really it's up to you. As far as the coolant goes on the bike, all the fluids are developed around the Motorex product brand. That's who Husqvarna, KTM, Gas do their development work with. Bike has pink 3.0 coolant in it. Motorex actually makes two different colors. One's pink, one's blue. The blue is the 5.0. This particular machine runs the 3.0 pink coolant in it. Big thing is don't mix different types of coolant. Can actually crystallize it or even turn it to jelly. All those would be a bad situation for you. If you are in a pinch, you can add a splash of bottled water, ideally distilled water, but no one's packing around distilled water in their backpack. So if you do need to add some, you can add a splash of bottled water to it. Just keep in mind, more water you add to it, it's going to drop that antifreeze capability you have for the winter time. And there are some different minerals in some of the bottled water that you won't find in some of the distilled water. So maybe try to avoid that if you can. Okay. The cap on the radiator is a press and twist. It kind of looks like a screw top, but it is a press and twist, just to be aware of that. Now looking further down on the engine, we're going to talk about break-in period, oil levels, all that fun stuff. So as far as the break-in period on the engine, the first hour of riding is going to be the break-in period on the oil. During that first hour of riding, nothing over 50% on the throttle. After that first hour, you're going to park, drain the oil, put fresh back into it, and then you're following 3 hours of riding, nothing over 75% throttle. Your average oil change, you're going to be looking at every 8 to 10 hours. So after that first oil change, every 8 to 10 hours. You can change it earlier if you prefer. I typically change personally mine. I typically kind of hover around that 5-hour mark. If I'm racing competition, I change mine after every race weekend. Oil's cheap, engines aren't. That's how I typically look at it. Now, if we look a little closer to the engine block here, there's a little teeny bolt right above the brake lever, and that actually says oil level on it. So that's actually your mechanical sight window. So after you've drained it and capped up the engine, you're going to have the bike standing straight up and down. You'll have that bolt removed, and as you're adding oil to it, you'll start seeing oil weep out of that little window right there. Once you start seeing it weep, stop filling at that point, let it finish dripping and stop, and that's your capacity there. Keep in mind that bolt does not hold the whole engine together. There's a copper washer on it, just a firm snug fit on that little guy, okay? Some clients prefer to just pour to capacity. You're just a little right around 875, 895 cc's on the oil, right around there. So if you want to use that process instead of using the little mechanical sight window right there, that's perfectly up to you. So it just depends on how you want to approach that. So we're going to move around to the other side of the motorcycle. We're going to see where the drains to the engine are, and that way we can take a look at that. If you want to do your own service work on it, it's something that you can definitely tackle, and it's not going to be too intimidating for you. So let's take a look over on this side. Now, if we look at just below the shifter right here, we're going to see a shiny 13mm headed bolt. That's your drain bolt right there. It actually has a magnetic tip on it, so you want to clean it off before you reinstall it. Now, there are a couple ways you can drain your oil. One requires that you remove the skid plate. It is a 4-point mount system. So there again, you've got a piece of hardware just like that, right through that teeny little hole right there, okay? And then right at the back of the frame right here, you've got another 8mm 30 Torx combo head. So those bolts come out, mirror image on the opposite side, so all 4 bolts come out, and then you can drop the skid plate. There is another process. We actually sell a drain tube kit. I believe it's built by Bulletproof. Basically, you lean your bike over extreme on the far side, pull the drain bolt out so it doesn't leak any fluid. You screw the drain tube kit in, you stand it back up, and it drains out in your drain container. So a little easier process. I think they run like 25 bucks for one of those little drain tube kits. So if that's something you want to look at, I find it a really easier process to work on instead of having to drop that skid plate as well. So once you've capped that up, add your oil to your capacity, and then you're good to go on that. So one thing I do recommend is riding with motocross boots. Your shifter height is adjustable. So there again, you've got one of those combo headed bolts right there. You're just gonna zip that out all the way. It's about that long. And then the shifter is actually on a cone spline. So you're just gonna reposition that, zip that back down, and then you're good to go. We all have different styles of boots that we ride in. So sometimes we have to change that shifter height to accommodate for different toe boxes on our boots. So moving back to the chain, ideally, you want to check the chain tension with load on the ground as the bike is sitting, and you're going to do your measurement just behind the end of the chain glide right here, and from slack as the chain is, roughly you want to see 3 fingers, okay? We're a little snug, but we're going to get a little stretch out of that, so we're totally fine on that. If you do have to adjust that, just going to loosen the axle nut on the opposite side, then you can adjust your adjuster blocks equally, and you do have sight marks on both sides. Now, one brilliant thing about the axles on all the Husqvarnas, the KTMs, the gases, if you ever change to 1 or 2 teeth bigger on the rear gear set, or maybe even go to a larger gear up on the front, you can flip your axle over 180 degrees and use that short adjuster face versus that long adjuster face. So it gives you a little leeway to work with that process right there, okay? And then some minor things, side stand. You do have a side stand leash. That way you can keep the side stand up if you're doing those really high gap jumps and you don't have that pivot down on you. It just turns the bike into a tree leaner in that process, and so you do have that option as well. Then if we look at the air filter cover box here, this is one of the easiest setups that I've come across. There are a couple push starts on the panel. There's one right about right here and one right about right here. So we're just gonna reach in here, give that little push start a pop, one more pop that way, and this is just gonna heel out. And then you've already got a pre-serviced filter right there. Easy to maintain, just pop the tab, and pull the filter out, remove the cage, clean the filter, let it dry, re-oil it, and then you're ready to go. About the 3 o'clock position inside the air box, you're just gonna find that little tine, looks very similar to that. Just gonna reinstall the filter after you've serviced it, and then you're good to go. Now, this is actually usually the point where I quiz my clients on how often they should clean their air filter. The rule of thumb is every ride. I mean, if it's just green fern gully stuff and it's not too dusty out, you can probably get away with it. But if it's a dusty ride and you're dusty on your motorcycle, your filter's probably quite a bit dirtier. So biggest cause of engine failure we see running through the shop is dirty air filters and dirty oil. So maintain those and the bike's gonna keep you in good shape. So after you've serviced the filter, pretty easy to install the panel here. There's a little heel that's gonna catch right inside this little slot right here, and then you've got your push starts right here. One goes there, one goes there. So we're just gonna set that little tab inside there. The panel will center itself just like that, okay? Now, underneath the seat here, things have changed a little bit. Some of our previous models, you actually pulled the seat back to remove it. Now the seat slides forward to remove it. So there's one retaining bolt right here. There again, one of those combo headed bolts. You're just gonna peel that out. And the easiest way I find to remove the seat is you're just gonna step back to the back of the bike and just push forward with your thumbs, and that seat will slide straight forward on you. Once you've done that, that's gonna expose some relocated goodies here. Your ECU is actually a little further back, and your lithium battery is actually rotated up towards more center up on the bike, a little more centrally located, a little better central mass weight on the bike. And we'll talk about kind of the process on lithium batteries here in a second. Now, if you decide you're gonna remove the fuel tank, we do recommend leaving the shrouds connected to the fuel tank because the attachment screws are more kind of a woody style. They get a little tired after you work them in and out of the fuel tank. But right in front of the shroud, right about here and here, you've got one of those little combo headed bolts that we've been talking about all over the machine. So there's a couple right here, a couple on the other radiator, and then right about right here, recessed in the tank is the main anchoring bolt. So all 5 bolts come out. Then you're gonna have the electrical dongle for the fuel pump. It's located right back of the fuel tank right here. That just gets unplugged. And pretty brilliant, there's a quick release line for the fuel line. So if I actually press this little silver tab right here, the black and the silver part will separate. You'll get a little fuel that dribbles out, but if the bike's not running, the fuel won't flow. There's no petcock to worry about on the bike. So once that's disconnected, you can just flex the shroud slightly, lift up on the tank, and then you can move the tank up out of the way, do any cleaning, maintenance, maybe change your plug, whatnot, what you want to do under there, okay? Now, once you've gone to put this all back together, a little information on your fuel line. When you do purchase a new bike, you get a little cardboard goodie box. It's got some few goodies in it. It's got a little baggie with some extra hardware, a little quarter-turn throttle reel. Inside that little baggie, you're gonna find 3 little tiny conical fuel filters. One of those lives inside this little metal housing right here, and we recommend changing that once a year. Okay, so the easiest way to access that is once these are disconnected, you're just gonna take this line, look down the throat of it, you're gonna sneak that old filter out and just plug a new one back in, and then you can reconnect it. Now, just a little word of advice when you are reconnecting this fuel line, there is an O-ring on the end of this housing. It's living kind of right about this area right here. I would recommend dressing that O-ring with a little bit of oil before you go to reconnect it. That way, less chance of a dry tear on the O-ring, and you will hear a positive click when you put that back together too, okay? All right, so let's talk about the lithium battery. So lithium batteries, they go dormant when they sit for a little bit. So on that first start of the day, you're not actually gonna start the bike. All you're gonna do is wake the battery up just by bumping the start button. Just that, okay? Give it about 20 to 30 seconds, let those electrons get dancing around that battery, getting a little busier, then you're gonna have a good solid charge when you go to hit that starter, and it's gonna crank for you a little stronger. On the opposite, if you walk up and you just start cranking up on a dormant lithium battery, typically it's gonna wind it down really quick just because things haven't had time to energize in that battery and just get a little zappier in the system. So once you've given a little wake-up call and got that battery charged a bit, we're gonna swing over on this side. We're gonna take a look and see where the choke is. Now, just a little word of caution on the choke. The choke doubles as two things. It's your throttle positioning sensor and it's your cold start or your choke. So the big thing is we don't want to turn this knob. We actually want to treat it as a button. So if we actually look down inside the frame, we can see that yellow knobby button right there. I'm going to refer to it as a button because we only want to press it. So the way we actually press it, we're going to use a single point of contact, no double digits, maybe tip of your finger or side of your knuckle. We're going to reach straight in, and if we kind of look in this area right here, we might even see how that's activated. So we're just going to press that choke straight up into the tank. Probably heard that click. Now the choke is activated. Now to avoid burning your hand on a hot pipe, trying to pull that down, or maybe a chance of turning that TPS and throwing it out of calibration, easiest way to turn the choke off, you're going to take your throttle and you're going to twist it opposite. We'll actually hear a click, just like so. It's pretty impressive, so that way you don't have to get your hands in there and really start messing around with things. Unfortunately, if you do throw your TPS out of calibration, the only way to fix it is you bring it into us. We hook up to our cool computer, recalibrate it for about 125 bucks and send you off with a smile. So I really stress single point of contact, and then you're going to be a lot better off on that situation. Now on top of the throttle body, there's actually a red knob. That's your idle adjuster. You can turn that all day long. All it's going to do is raise or lower your RPM. It's not the end of the world if you fiddle with that, okay? Good deal. All right, so now we're going to talk about some of the features on the bike. We're going to take a look at our map switch. I don't have the permanent code in this bike yet. They actually come with a deactivation code from the factory. That way no one can just yank them out of a crate and just go off and enjoy some stuff without actually earning it. So we're just gonna wake the bike up just a little bit. It won't actually run for us. But now we can see our map switches. So the white map, that would be more of the mellow map, good for like really technical trail riding. And then the green map, that's actually full go. That's your full sport mode, a lot more responsive on that throttle. It's going to give you the most power out of the system on the bike. So these are switchable. It is a press and hold when you switch the map. If you tap the button, it's not going to change for you. And that way, ideally, if you bump the button on the trailer, it's not going to suddenly switch up on you. Then if we look up on our gauges right here, we've got a full display. We've got odometer, hour meter. We've got our speedo. We can actually cycle through, change that hour meter to odometer. You can get into the system. Maybe if you're riding in a European continent, you can change it over to kilometers if you like. Some people prefer that. We're in the USO. Then there is a light switch right here. They've actually updated the headlight switch. So now it's just a nice little spring-loaded press button versus that pull tab. And that's a lot easier to operate. One cool thing about it is if you actually shut the bike off with the headlight on, it will time out. So you don't have to physically turn the headlight off. It'll time out after, I think it's about 5 seconds or so. And then same with the gauges. Now that we're on the topic of the gauges as well, if you happen to move your bike in your garage without firing the bike up, it might wake up your gauges because it's picking up a sensor off the front wheel speed sensor. But like I said, it will time out as well on that situation. There's a couple little warning features on the gauges. You've got a low fuel light, you've got an oil pressure light, and then you also have a check engine light as well. So if any of those features pop up, definitely time to get some fuel or check your oil or bring it in, see what's going on with the situation. Well, gang, I think that about covers the electronics on the motorcycle. Now we're going to talk about some suspension. This is one thing that I really dig getting into conversations about with new clients on their bikes. I've talked to clients that have purchased motorcycles and they've said they've never touched the suspension. They rode the manufacturer's bike the entire time. They never rode their bike. So really the whole goal is you want to tailor this bike to where it's going to work good for you and where it's going to operate best for you. Sometimes, depending on our weights, we do have to respring our motorcycles to where the bike's going to operate for us a little more properly, be a little more suspended in those situations. I think we had a video previously about talking about proper spring rates on our motorcycles. But we're going to talk about the front forks here first. Now, if we take a peek, we see these little white clicker adjusters. The white clickers signify our compression adjusters. Then at the base of the forks, we can't really see them, but if we actually looked at them, there's another clicker adjuster at the base of the fork. It's physically red, but if you put your fingertip on it, it's the exact same shape as that compression adjuster up on top. Now, the easiest way to process how these clicker adjusters work is all you can do is controlling fluid flow. So I typically look at how the fork is activating speed-wise. So if the fork is diving really fast, that means my compression is a little soft, and I want to firm that compression up just by closing off those clickers, just like you're shutting off the water. It's a lot easier process mentally, I think, to think about as we're controlling fluid flow versus numbers that we're trying to figure out, plus, minus, that type of thing. So there again, if the fork's diving really fast, we want to slow that process down by taking these compression clickers just by shutting the water off a couple clicks. Usually 2 to 3 clicks in either direction. You're going to notice you made a change, but you can go further past that if you need to. Now, if you're getting on the brakes and it feels like it's maybe diving a little slower than you want, then we're going to open up those compression clickers a bit, and that's going to help the fork dive a little faster when we go to those brakes, or even when we hit a bump and those forks compress into that fork. So a lot of it is I'm looking at trying to get a good sense on how the bike is feeling. Does it feel a little unsettled when I go to my brakes? Maybe I want to slow that down just to make it feel a little more controlled. Then once you've got that good fork dive kind of controlled, then you're going to start working on rebound. Once that fork dives, how does it rebound up? Does it just suddenly spring back at you, or does it come back at a nice steady rate to where it feels good? Is it trying to launch you out of a rut turn? Maybe that's rebounding too fast. So there again, to slow that rebound down, we're going to take those clicker adjusters and we're just going to shut the water off, just like we're restricting that fluid through that valve. If maybe it feels like it's coming up a little slow or lazy up on the front end, then we want to open up those clicker adjusters a couple clicks, just where we're allowing more flow through those valves. That front end's going to pop up a little quicker, okay? Then if we look back at the shock, same concepts on our shock assembly. All we're doing is controlling fluid flow through these valving. So the little white clicker, that's for low speed compression, and the high speed compression is the gray adjuster. So kind of a good example of that, low speed compression, maybe a fluttery little whoopee section, or maybe the bike squats really fast when you're coming out of a turn and you're getting on the gas. So maybe if you want to slow that squat down, you're going to take that slow speed compression adjuster and you're just going to restrict the flow through the valve just by shutting the water off. Or if maybe you want it to compress a little quicker on that low speed compression, you're going to just open up that faucet a little bit, okay? Just controlling that fluid flow. As far as the high-speed compression, that's for those fast hits. You're coming off a good jump, that hard landing, you blast a log in the middle of the trail, something where it's a fast action on that shock. So if that feels a little too firm, you're just gonna open up the faucet a little bit and let it flow a little bit more. Or if you wanna firm up that feeling, you're just gonna close off that valve and just make it feel a little firmer on you. There again, just controlling fluid flow. Then if we look at the base of the shock, right underneath the swing arm, we're going to see that red clicker adjuster. That's for your rebound. There again, if it feels like it's trying to buck you out of the seat a little bit, that means the rebound's probably moving too fast. So we need to take that clicker adjuster and just turn that to the right, just like we're shutting the water off. Or if we wanted to speed up, maybe it's a little slow on that rebound, feeling like maybe it's coming up behind the front end, then we can speed that rebound up by turning that clicker adjuster out a couple clicks, and that's going to speed it up to where it pops up a little quicker and maybe evening up that rise up on the bike. It's all by seat of the pants, gang. There are some recommendations on KTM, Husqvarna, Gas, where you can get into your bike and kind of personalized, dial it in. They'll give you some good suggestions on it. But really go out and ride the bike, really kind of get a good feel on, kind of get a good sense on how the bike is working for you. Personally, when I go out, I write down my base stock settings on a notepad, and I typically try to focus strictly on my compression settings first and my high-speed compression on the shock. Once those are feeling pretty dialed in, then I'm gonna start focusing on my rebound clickers. If you wanna approach it vice versa, rebound first, compression after, that's totally good. Just kind of keep in mind what you are focusing on instead of getting lost in the whole quagmire and turning everything at the same time. Kind of treat it as two different chapters in the day. And the brilliant thing is, if you do get lost in the quagmire, you've got your stock settings written down on that notepad. You can go right back to your base settings and just start fiddling with it again. My point is don't be afraid to mess with your suspension. It's definitely something I'd recommend. Now that we're kind of done chit-chatting about suspension, some base things, base settings on the tires, 16 in the front, 15 in the rear. Those are pretty common standard base settings, but you can fiddle around with that depending on the environment that you're playing with. And then some things that I see some issues, mainly on the back axle assembly here when clients fiddle with their own bikes. I do point this out because I see this mistake happen quite a bit. If you take a look at the axle nut, there's actually a pocket that it's recessed into on the adjuster plate. Well, what happens is clients will pull this assembly off and do some service work on their tire and their chain. When they put this back together, they'll take their adjuster plate and they'll have it flipped over. Well, there's no pocket on the back side of that adjuster plate. So when you put your nut on, you're only hanging on by about 2 or 3 threads. So rule of thumb, if you can't see the face of your axle, something's wrong on that assembly. You need to recheck it. So gang, that's kind of my little nice little walk around on the bike. I hope that helps you out. Hopefully maybe kind of clears up some questions for you, and maybe this will be the right bike for you, and hopefully you can see some future walk arounds on some future bikes. Look forward to seeing you, gang. Thanks.